Right, last video of tonight, and I don't know if I'm going to be uploading this tonight or maybe tomorrow, depending on how long the upload time will be for my match review for match week number 6, and also the preview for that midweek game between RSL and NYCFC. But yeah, it's time for probably one of my favorite thing to do, which is the power rankings. And we start off in 23rd. And this team stays at the same spot as last week, and this shouldn't be a surprise, is DC United. So DC didn't play this week, and like what I said before in my last power rankings, where I said that they got a off week this week, as long as one of these teams in the basement does not suffer a very bad loss, DC is going to stay in the basement. And unfortunately, none of those teams above them suffer a big loss, so they remains in 23rd. And in 22nd, this team was the biggest loser of this week, and that of course is Portland. And they wouldn't be the biggest loser this week if they didn't blow a 2-0 lead and lose 3-2 to Orlando City. I mean, yeah, Portland, it is just an absolute nightmare right now from what happened in that game against Orlando City. I mean, it's bad enough to blow a 2-0 lead, but to blow a 2-0 lead and then lose 3-2 when you're pretty much the better side throughout the first 80 minutes or so, yeah, it is not a good way to finally go back home and start your kind of home opener. In fact, it's going to be kind of a sour taste home opener for Portland. But yeah, in 21st, this team moved up one spot. Or actually not moved up one spot, did they? No, they moved down one spot from this week. And that is Philadelphia. And actually, that's not an L, that's an I. But yeah, Philadelphia moved down one spot from last week as they drew 1-1 to San Jose, and it was a game that they probably should have won, considering the fact that they dominate the Quakes from the first half. I mean, the second half, it was more of an open game for them, but they just didn't take their opportunity in the first half, and they just dropped 2 crucial points at home against the Quakes. And in 20th, this team moved up 2 spots from last week, is the Rapids, who could have moved up more spots if they can just finish the job. Probably the third time I have to say with the Rapids early this season. But yeah, they once again concede a late goal to either get lost the game or drop 2 points in the situation. And in this situation, it was them dropping 2 points against FC Dallas when it looked like it was going to be a 1-0 win for them on the road. And like I said, if they would have won that one, they would have moved up in terms of my power rankings. And in 19th place, this team didn't play this weekend, so they stay at the same spot. And that, of course, is the Loons, who stay in 19th position. And actually, now moving on to 18th. And this team actually gained a spot from last week, and that is FC Dallas. So I know in the review I said that the reason why I put them so down like this is because I just don't think that Dallas is one of those teams that you can say that they look like they're one of the better team in MLS just because of their unbeaten record. And you know, even though I moved them up a spot, they're still in 18th place. They're almost near this bottom row here, and if they didn't rescue that draw, they would be in this bottom row. And you know, 6 points from 4 games at home is just clearly not good enough. Like, I don't care what team you are, if you only get 6 points out of your first 4 home games, and teams that they face are not even that tough, that is not a good sign for Dallas. And I just have a feeling that when they do face those tough teams, they will be stable in this bottom row when they do face those tough teams with the likes of LA Galaxy and LAFC and Toronto coming in their schedule as the teams that they will face. But in 17th, and this team moved up 3 spots, or actually no, this team moved down 3 spots. And actually, just to let you guys know, I'm not actually using my notebooks, but I'm using actually looking on my computer because I wrote all the power rankings on there this week. And that, of course, is Montreal, who lost 4-0 against the Revs, and I think they were also one of the biggest loser in this week. But yeah, I mean, that red card really just changed the game for them, and for the worse too, because they literally looked like a team that just didn't know what to do when they're down to 10 men, and they just looked like they just completely capitulated when they're down to 10 men and gave up those 4 goals. And probably they should have gave up 5 goals in this game because New England actually missed a penalty in this one. But in 16th, this team actually tied for the biggest loser this week. Actually, my marker here, for some reason, didn't work there, but it's LAFC, who of course lost 4 spots from this week. They lost 5-0 against Atlanta United, and even though if you actually watched that whole game and you saw that it didn't look like it was going to be a 5-0 game until Atlanta decided to just power it on late in the game. But yeah, it wasn't a very good performance for LAFC, both on the attacking end and the defensive end. I mean, the attacking end, they just could not quite find those crucial ball. I mean, guys like Vela and Rossi had a off day, and then in the defense it was a bit of a mess too. They at times have struggled to trying to contain that dangerous front three that Atlanta has, and yeah, they lost 5-0 into this game, and they just kind of decided to quit the game after the 85th minute, where they just give up 3 goals. And if they didn't give up those 3 goals, maybe I wouldn't move them down so low. Because that's also one of the things I will say about this power rankings, is that when teams know that they're going to lose, they need to make sure that they don't just make it even worse. Because if they make it worse, like what LAFC just did this week, that's when I know I have to move them down. Because that's just a shown that they just quit. And I usually never like to see teams that just simply decide to quit, even though they know that for sure that they're gonna lose, because there was just no fighting spirits for LAFC in that game. But in 15th, and this team was the biggest game of this week, and that is Chicago, who for some reason I cannot spell there for a second. But yeah, Chicago moved up 5 spots from this week. They got a 1-0 win against Columbus, and it kind of feels weird to say that they are the biggest mover in this week, considering they only got a 1-0 win, and the fact that they only had 1 shot on target in this game, and we're pretty fortunate to not really kind of either draw this game or lose this game, because the Crew was just dominating this one. But I didn't think that there was throughout this whole weekend, I really didn't think that for some of these teams there was like a lot of impressive, like just a wow factor kind of victory for pretty much every team that has won this week. And for teams that did have that kind of wow factor, they were kind of like near the top, and there's also a team around them either lose or draw them, so that's why Chicago moved all the way up into the 15th spot. And in 14th place, this team moved up 2 spots from last week, and that is San Jose. So, like I said in the review, I can look at this game in 2 ways. One, I could say that it was a disappointing draw because I felt like we could have got more in this game, and especially how well we play in the second half and how it was an open game. We could have literally got a winner in that one, but at the same time, I could also say that, well, it's a draw, and a draw is usually very rare when the Quakes are on the road, and a draw is like a 3 points for us pretty much on the road. So that's kind of like two ways I look at it, and I for my power rankings, I just kind of look at it as, well, it's a good draw because at least we got a point on the road, and at least that we didn't really lose this game. Consider how bad we play in the first half in this game, and how Philly just, if they were more clinical in that first half, we would have easily lost this one. But yeah, in 13th place, this team moved up one spot, but they didn't play this week, and that, of course, is Houston. And actually, my board started to slide down for a second. Actually, let me just check to make sure that it is still in place. Okay, all right. So yeah, Houston, of course, moved up one spot from last week. They didn't play, of course, this weekend, and because teams around them either lose or draw, that's why they moved up one spot from that place. And then in 12th place, this team also moved up one spot, and probably for the same reason as Houston, is Seattle, who didn't play this week. And certainly I hope this week is a good opportunity for the Sounders to kind of like gather themselves and try to be more disciplined in this upcoming game, because so far Seattle is just off to a terrible start right now. They're the only team in the league that have not scored a single point at all, and they also are the only team in the league that have not finished a game with all 11 men. They have a game that always have a man send off in every single MLS game that they have this season. I mean, that's just incredible how it is with Seattle this season. But at the same time, I guess maybe you would also say that this shouldn't be a surprise, because that's what the Sounders are for the last couple of years, is that they always tend to get off to that bad start, and then somehow some miraculous thing happened in June or July or even as late as August, and they just went on a huge run to make it to the MLS Cup. And I'm not quite sure if that's going to be the case again. I mean, surely that cannot be the case again for the Sounders. But yeah, in 11th place, and this team moves down. Oh, come on, marker. This marker is just dying. And speaking of dying, this board keeps sliding down. And this is why next week I'm going to actually purchase a kind of like a holder for this board, because it just keeps sliding down. And that, of course, is Vancouver, who, of course, moved down 2 spots from last week. And Vancouver, of course, lost to RSL, which kind of end their good run on the road. But still, Vancouver, I think, is still one of the better teams in the league. And, for Vancouver, the only issue for them so far this season is that once their counterattack does not work, like what happened in that game against RSL, then they are kind of screwed. And I kind of said this in the beginning of the season too, with what if Vancouver's counterattack just stall, that's when it's just trouble time for the Whitecaps. So yeah, they moved down 2 spots from last week. And in 10th place, this team also moved down 2 spots, and my board is about to collapse. Oh dear, this is not good. Oh goodness, man, I can't wait to get that holder next week, because it is just keeps sliding. Didn't even write the B correctly too. So let me just check to make sure. Yeah, the board is kind of a little bit tilt, but yeah. So Columbus, of course, moved down 4 spots from last week as they lost 1-0 to the Fire. And although they weren't very lucky in that game, and the fact that they have so many opportunity to finish in that game, and it was probably just one of those days where they just cannot finish at all, they moved down 4 spots because they lost, and teams around them also won. So that's why they of course moved down 4 spot, and it was a pretty bad loss against Chicago. That is a team that hasn't really got things going this season. So yeah, they moved down into 10th place, and in 9th place, this team of course beat Vancouver, and that of course is RSL. Although for RSL, so far this early season, it hasn't been a very good start to the season, but at least they got some points on the board. That at least it hasn't been just an absolute disaster kind of a start for Mike Pecky's team. And the other thing about RSL is they have a brutal last 3 weeks in terms of the schedule. Like, now they're about to fly all the way across the other side of the country to play the best team in the league, that is NYCFC, and they have to do it in a midweek game. So yeah, I feel bad. I certainly felt bad for you, RSL, in terms of how you're going through this tough schedule. But hey, every single MLS team have to go through a rough patch in terms of the scheduling, and I guess that's probably the only way RSL can look at this and just not complain. The fact that they are put in this really rough patch of schedule. And in 8th place, this team continues to move up. And this team, a couple of weeks ago, I didn't think was even going to move down near the bottom row for a while, but they've been proving me wrong and now move up to the 2nd row, is the Revs, or actually the 3rd row, technically. So the Revs are now in the top 10 and now are in 8th place. And the Revs, of course, got a 4-0 win over Montreal, and it was kind of courtesy the fact that once they were up a man in this game, they look like by far the better team in that game against Montreal. And really, there was just nothing but complete dominance by the Revs after that sending off by Montreal, and they deserved that 4-0 win. And the Revs are certainly looking up on a high, and certainly I would say maybe one of the most surprising teams so far this season. And if they can continue this form, they definitely can be very serious threat in the Eastern Conference. But we'll see. We'll see if they can continue this form. We'll see if this is just a great start to the season and that eventually they will come back to earth. My feeling is that they are potentially going to come back down to earth, because some of the games that they have won, I think besides the Houston game that they won on the road, have been against pretty easy opponent, although they did have to face NYCFC and they kind of draw that game. So I don't know. I think the Revs might come back down to earth. They're just off to an amazing start. And it's also kind of sad that the fan base doesn't really care, because the Revs, alongside with a couple of other fan base like Columbus and Chicago, nobody just goes to their games, and it's kind of sad to see that. And speaking of sad, this team also moved down, and that of course is the Galaxy. Although I think sad shouldn't be kind of put in the Galaxy kind of notebook, because they did play against probably the best team in the Western Conference, and unfortunately there is no Zlatan kind of dramatic kind of come from behind like what happened last week in El Tráfico. And they just, in that game, they just didn't look very good. They really got out possessed by Sporting KC, and at times they did kind of get a little bit unlucky by hitting the post 3 times and just being not very clinical. But at the end of the day, their defense and the goals that they concede to Sporting KC in that game was really poor and very preventable. So yeah, that's why they're in 7th place and dropped down 2 spots. And in 6th place, this team did not play, but still dropped down 1 spot, and that of course is the Red Bulls, which I don't really need to talk a lot about why they dropped down to 1 spot, because some other team either won or draw. And yeah, so in 5th, this team moved up 3 spots, and probably this team moved up 3 spots and did another come from behind win, and that is Orlando City, who made a crazy 2-0 comeback in this game against the Timbers, and potentially not only get themselves back on track, but also potentially save Jason Christjaw for another game. I mean, tell you what, I definitely did not expect the fact that Orlando City can just completely turn that game around. Like, they look dead and buried after Portland were up 2-0, and even with 10 minutes ago, I didn't think that this Orlando City can just instantly just turn it on like that, but they did, and they also kind of got a couple of help from the ref, which were absolutely horrendous in that game between the Timbers and Orlando City. But at the end of the day, sometimes you need the call to go right on you, and sometimes you might need a little bit luck, and certainly Orlando City rely on a couple of luck in this game. And yeah, Orlando City now move into 5th position, which I think this is the first time since the preseason power rankings that I've moved them into the top 5. So it's been a while since Orlando City has moved back into the top 5, but yeah, that's where they are this week. And in 4th place, this team didn't play this week, and that of course is TFC. And Toronto, of course, preparing for that midweek game against Club America at the Azteca. And certainly good luck to TFC. Certainly I will be rooting for TFC in this game, because this is a great opportunity for Toronto to go to another final. And pretty much TFC is just sort of representing MLS right now. I mean, this is a team that I think if they can beat Club America, I really think that they potentially can win the CONCACAF Champions League. I mean, if you look at the teams remain, the Red Bulls and also Chivas Guadalajara, I really think that TFC, if they can get by Tigres and also Club America, there is just no way for me to say that they're going to not get by Chivas Guadalajara or the Red Bulls, depending on how that leg between the Red Bulls and Chivas will do. And also good luck to the Red Bulls against Chivas Guadalajara. They obviously are down 1-0 in terms of the aggregates, so maybe they can of course come back from this. The good news is the Red Bulls are playing their CONCACAF Champions League game at home, so there's a huge chance that they can come back from that 1-0 deficit. However, if they do concede that away goal, that is where it gets really tricky for the Red Bulls. So yeah, good luck to the Red Bulls in Toronto in that midweek. I'll certainly be watching the midweek game in the CONCACAF Champions League. And now moving on to the top 3, and we will be having a new, damn it, stop dropping. We will have a new number 1 in terms of the power rankings, because NYCFC, for the first time since probably the first week or the preseason power rankings, I don't know if I rank NYCFC first in the preseason power rankings, but yeah, they of course dropped down 2 spots in this. Although if they can win against RSL, then I think I have to move them back to first place, because they are still the best team in the league right now, and just the way that they're just winning games for fun, there's no doubt they deserve to be back in the first spot. For now, they dropped down to number 3, and in second, this team moved up 1 spot from last week, and that of course is Sporting KC. And once again, my board is about to drop. Actually, I'm just gonna hold this because I think my stand is just literally about to die here. But yeah, Sporting KC of course got that massive victory against the Galaxy, and is another example of why they are potentially going to be the team that's going to finish top in the West, and maybe even challenge NYCFC and Atlanta for the Supporters Shield. And speaking of Atlanta, that is who our number 1 is going to be. So there was a close. I kind of decide whether or not should I put Sporting KC on top or Atlanta on the number 1 spot, because both teams kind of got impressive victory against the 2 LA team. But in the end, I decided to put Atlanta there because LAFC has been just a really, really good team. And, you know, Atlanta, with the way that they have now won 4 in a row, and just the way that these victories that they have been going, and how easy it's been, and how they've been able to win from different ways. Yeah, Atlanta definitely deserved to be in that first spot. Although the question is, I don't know exactly, will they stay in that first spot? Depend on what NYCFC does. If NYCFC, of course, won that game against RSL, then yeah, they're back on top, and Atlanta will move down to second. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this power rankings. Let me know in the comments below, do you agree with these power rankings or not? And yeah, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.